days, 7th Circle Gaming. We analyze the game Hegemony Rome, the rise of Caesar. And we begin in our usual manner with full disclosure. As always, you're perfectly welcome to pause the video now and read through all of this at your leisure, or if you'd prefer not to, let's move right into the screenshots. The first screenshot that we have to share with you is the 50,000 foot level, so to speak, view of the in-game map. We also want, on this level, what we want to point out are the user interface, which is mostly centered on the bottom of the map of the screen, and on the top left, where the resource counter is located. On the bottom left can be found the mini-map, and on the bottom right is the building and unit interaction menu. On our next screenshot, which is much more of a tactical level, the 500 foot level interaction, what we are seeing is a lot more visual distinctiveness. There's trees, mountains, and we can identify individual buildings. The user interface hasn't changed very much otherwise. So then we'll move along very quickly to our first chapter proper, which is, as always, immersion. Here the game has earned a 6.2 out of 15. The game is presented in a top-down, historically inspired and reasonably realistic world, although of course we can't be 100% certain because we don't have 100% of the information about what historical buildings look like. Players familiar with the history of the Roman Empire, or in particular the Gallic Wars, will recognize the events of the game and be able to relate to it on that level. The game is also going to be attempting to utilize challenge to get players invested into the game world, and in this game it's going to take the form of managing multiple situations at locations around the map. The game will also be attempting to utilize statistics focus to get players invested into the game world. However, from all of our evaluation sessions, we have found this to be a particularly light touch. The statistics are available for players that are interested in them, but players that don't really want to get too bogged down in statistics really don't need to care. The game in campaign mode will be attempting to utilize story to get players invested into the game world. In the sense of how it's going to be doing that is with between mission cutscenes and early game audio. Moving right along then to difficulty, here the game has earned a 2 out of 15. The sandbox mode offers multiple configurations that are going to affect difficulty or may not. It just depends on what the player selects. The difficulty options, which really only applies to the sandbox mode, are only vaguely described. The UI, while simple as you've seen in the first couple of screenshots, does have some click detection issues. We particularly found this evident when we were attempting to interact with buildings that were close to trees or close to other obstacles. The campaign mode, as we found, has no difficulty options that we were able to discern. So then, with that, let's move right along to Lasting Appeal. Here, the game has earned a 4.5 out of 15. There are 2 ways to interact with this particular piece of software, and there are several factions to choose from in the sandbox mode. However, in all of the factions that we evaluated the game with, we couldn't necessarily find a lot of visual distinctiveness among them to divide them. The Duotriges looked as much like the Romans as the Dumnoni. as did the Alabregis. There are, in sandbox mode, multiple regions to play on with different tribes and different tactical challenges to overcome and different strategic challenges to overcome. It is possible in the sandbox mode to retry on different difficulty levels. There is a fair amount of DLC available, and we'll talk a bit more about that in the overall score. There are mods available. However, these are only available through the publisher's website and not through the Steam Workshop, so that will possibly require the creation of additional user accounts and registrations. Now then, moving right on to the overall score. Overall, Hegemony Rome, The Rise of Caesar, or Caesar if you prefer the classical Latin pronunciation, the game has earned a 4.23 out of 15. While some players will find the game overwhelming, some players will not. Players particularly familiar with the life of Julius Caesar or Roman history will appreciate the historicity of the game. The in-game units we found, lack visual distinction, as we said earlier. A Roman unit doesn't look all that different from the Alabregis, or the Domnoni, or any other early Gallic faction or Germanic faction. However, what we have found is that the DLC and mods do add significant content. The low cost of buy-in is another advantage of the game, although that is very highly subjective, so take that with a grain of salt. One final subjective statement we would also have those grains of salt at the ready is that in this particular version of the Hegemony series, the sandbox mode can be played with no NPC opponents, only the on-map barbarians, which is a reasonable way of learning how to play the game. And with that, there isn't much more to say about Hegemony Rome, The Rise of Caesar. So, from 7th Circle Gaming, if you made it all the way to the end, congratulations. You've made it all the way to the last slide of the video, and we'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.